Hey, welcome back. Mothers, as we know, are notorious for putting everyone else's needs first. And this Mother's Day, Komen Columbus is encouraging mothers to prioritize their health, make sure to get their annual checkups, including their mammograms. Next Saturday is the virtual Komen Race for the Cure. And here to share her story is breast cancer survivor Tracy with us this morning. Tracy, thank you so much. It's so good to see you here. It's amazing because you have a family story. You and your mother both diagnosed with breast cancer. What has that been like for your family?
It's been very hard. It's been kind of a 15-year journey here because my mom, just this coming fall, will be a 15-year survivor. So, you know, we've dealt with it for the last 15 years and having those routine mammograms and knowing that early detection is key and trying to get the word out. So, you know, but we're that support system for each other.
What were your battles like?
Our battles were, amazingly, they were kind of different. Mine was just this past July. I went for a routine mammogram. I've had, I don't know, 4 or 5 in my lifetime. So it was just kind of routine. I got a phone call less than 24 hours later saying I needed to come back and have some diagnostic imaging done. And it was at that appointment that the area that they were concerned with, you know, it warranted having a biopsy. So it was at that point that they put me in contact with Dr. Harvey, who is herself a breast cancer survivor and an inspiration. And she walked me through the whole biopsy process, and we had the biopsy and found out that I had the early stages of, you know, breast cancer. It was decided, you know, that we would go ahead and do a lumpectomy. That was right at the start of the school year, and I'm a school teacher, so that was interesting. We were remote at the time, and you know, kind of the silver lining in all of it was that because we were remote during my 2-week recovery period, I was able to still be with my students virtually and teach them and instruct them while I was recovering at home. Wow. So that was kind of nice, you know, in that aspect. And then right at about the time that radiation began, for those 2 months, we had just come back to school and you know, we were in person 5 days a week. So I had an amazing support system here with my administration and my staff that allowed me to leave at lunch every day and be able to have my treatments, you know, during my lunch break and come back and still be able to do that. So, you know, that was during COVID. So, you know, that wasn't something that my mom 15 years ago dealt with, but you know, and some of the differences in the treatment, but ultimately it was, you know, having the radiation and going through that and our experiences that we had, being able to lean on each other through that, you know, through those times. What
was it like for your mom when you got your diagnosis?
It was really hard. And you know, and leading up to it, I didn't say anything at first. She was going through a lot at the time, and I didn't want to have to say anything until I knew for sure. And once I had the diagnosis, you know, having to sit down and have that conversation, that was probably the hardest conversation, aside from having to share that with my own children. I have 3 boys, 3 amazing boys, and you know, that was a difficult conversation too, but it was harder. I think she felt some guilt in that. You know, so that was just, it was a hard conversation to have, and knowing what she had gone through and knowing that I was going to be going through something similar, I knew that was hard for her to hear.
And now, since you have a family history, it is more likely that doctors would push you to get a mammogram, maybe even younger than what you normally would. What is your advice for any woman, especially mothers who are usually busy, overwhelmed, overworked, overtired, and just, you know, not necessarily taking the best care of themselves?
I mean, that's the life of a mother, right? But we have to be our own health advocate in all of it. Listening to our bodies and knowing when something's not right. The unfortunate part of my situation was that I didn't have any symptoms. I didn't have any signs. So, you know, I do my monthly breast self exams. I try and eat right. I exercise regularly. And even still in all of that, like there was nothing that could be felt. The doctors couldn't feel anything. There was no outward signs that there were any concerns or problems. So if it hadn't been for this routine mammogram that, that I did, who knows when I would have been able to discover that it was breast cancer and what that journey, how that journey would have been different down the road when I would have found out much later.
And Komen Race for the Cure is all about bringing awareness to stories just like yours. It's virtual next weekend. Do you have any involvement in that? What do you know about it?
Oh, absolutely. Well, we have a team. We've been doing this since my mom was diagnosed. So, with the exception of last year, we've participated every year since her diagnosis in 2006. So, it's just this amazing thing to be a part of, and so inspirational to see all of these women who are survivors of breast cancer and being able to carry the memories of those that we've lost along the way. I do know that registration goes through Friday the 14th. They're doing an opening ceremony that you can watch on their Facebook page. They also have a YouTube channel that you can check the opening ceremony that starts at 8:30. And then the race starts at 9. Again, it's virtual, so get your friends and family out there, go to a local park, and do a 5K, walk 3 miles, and do it for all these people that have been affected by breast cancer, families, friends, loved ones. There's so many.
Well, it's a great idea. Tracy, I appreciate you sharing your story. I wish you and your mother continued health and a happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers.